I'm going to read something for you from the Mind Power book. If you haven't received the Mind Power book, just ask me, and then we have links, and we could give you a link so you could get the book for free. And the Mind Power is the 17 secrets of using your thoughts to powerfully accelerate every area of your life. So this is Mind Power number 2, okay? And it's the power of new pathways. So let's read a little bit and then let's break it down together, and then you type in the chat bar what your takeaways is. Have you ever wanted to change a habit but struggle in their life, want to change a habit, perhaps a health habit or a productivity habit? However, good intentions don't create success on their own. Good intentions do not create success on their own, which is why many people struggle to replace an old habit or create a new habit. So maybe type in the chat bar habits and we'll break this down some. This is true of nearly every level of thinking in life, not just the habits that might first come to mind. At the simple level, maybe you always turned on the light with the light switch that was on the right of the door until you moved to a house where the light switch was to the left of the door. Okay? How many times did you fumble around on the right side of the door until the new habit was built? So wait a second here. If habits play such a big part, and habits create patterns and patterns end up creating outcomes, then maybe we're onto something here. Maybe we need to start asking ourselves, how do we change habits? It goes deeper than just light switches too. The thought processes and mental rules that guide your life right now about relationships, money, work, health, and much more are habits you learned for a long time. Our brains simply get into a pattern of thinking one way, and it's hard to change that thing. Programming through patterns, through repetition. Now, repetition does not have to be your repetition. It could be the repetition of what your mom said, your dad said over and over, or the TV said, or whatever was in your world when you were young. So as you were young, if your parents kept saying, hey, money doesn't grow on trees, money doesn't grow on trees, we're always struggling for money, well, that becomes your new pattern that plays inside your mind. Okay, the reason this happens is simple. Our brain loves predictable patterns. It loves predictable patterns. It wants on a regular track. If you don't have this book, you should get the book. I'm not making big money off this book. This book is strictly changing people's lives here. So to our brains, predictable patterns are safe and simple. But when those patterns break, or when we want them to break and be replaced by something different, our brains struggle to create a new pattern where the old one seemed to be working just fine. So just so you know, write this down or type it in the chat bar, okay? Growth does not come from comfort. Growth comes from being uncomfortable. Okay, Jim Clark, you can relate, right? Growth does not come from comfort. Growth comes from being uncomfortable. Okay, so if you've ever been lost while driving around, maybe you've turned down the radio a bit. It's a neuroplasticity, okay? And this means that your brain is moldable and can be rewired. Okay, so let's write down another big note, DJ, that everybody has the ability to rewire and reprogram and repattern their thinking. And when you rewire, reprogram your thinking, you create new results. Okay, let's keep going here. So you have the ability to change the hardwiring of your brain, which will affect your thinking, reasoning, perspective, and the ability to learn and focus. Now, you can only learn at the rate of speed that you can rewire your thinking to comprehend things faster and put it into a bigger future, right? Into creating a newer future. And so then we go on. Your brain works on the premise of use it or lose it. Pathways that are used daily would be strengthened and reinforced. Now, pathways that I would say are beneficial and non-beneficial pathways. So what it's saying is if I create a pathway of suffering, pain, and telling myself we always have problems, we're never going to grow, we always struggle hiring, we always struggle. I had a really great message today out of the blue today. An employee posted, let me see if I have it here. So an employee posted this, and I felt really good about it because a lot of people, this employee hasn't worked for me in probably a decade. And he posted it today. He said, I just wanted to give a big shout out to Mike and Rob that started Gold Medal Service. I spent over a decade working for them. I've endured growth as a man and success in the industry because of them. I can't thank you guys both enough. So this is a person who has not worked for me for a decade and worked for me for a decade and then posted that. I'm really proud of that. You know what that means? That means that I changed a life, not just paid a person to work. And that's what this is saying here. Your brain works on the premise of use it or lose it. Pathways that are used daily will be strengthened and reinforced, whereas pathways that are rarely called upon will lose their connections and slowly disappear. So when you were a kid, your parents told you you could be the president, you could be a superhero, you could be anything you want. And then you turned 15 and they were like, I just hope you get off video games and hope you become something, right? So your belief system that you could be the president, if it's told over and over again, you'll become that. And if it's not, then you won't. So think of your brain like a jungle. All right. There are many footpaths through the jungle that are used on a daily basis. So they are easy to travel on. They get you from point A to point B without a lot of effort or even thought. You simply follow the path. Okay. Now, if you decide that you wanted to create a new path through the jungle to a new destination, that would be a lot of work. Okay. It would take effort because you're changing the direction of your current thinking. Now, wait a second. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a change. Our brains are wired to do things consistently. It sounds like our brains have a sense of insanity until you break the insanity. Okay. You would need to get out your machete and start hacking away at the dense undergrowth. It would be slow progress. And the initial pathway that you create would be narrow with many obstacles to your health. It all comes back to this. You have to understand there is a point where you need to push through to the next level, right? At times, it would look like you were barely getting anywhere. Okay, this is the ultimate thing right here that keeps people from greater levels of success. I watch, there's a couple good books you should read. The one of them's 3 Feet from Gold. Okay. A guy's digging for gold, never finds it, quits on the mine, sells it to someone else. Someone goes down, digs 3 more foot, hits gold. They quit by 3 feet. Okay. Acres of Diamonds is another one. Like both of these, 3 Foot from Gold and Acres of Diamonds, you should read these because they're game and life changers. Acres of Diamonds, I'll give you my quick version of it. Okay. Acres of Diamonds is that this person has this big farm and he's constantly looking for diamonds and he can't find diamonds anywhere. And I want to hear in the chat bar what you take away from this story. This has really changed my life. So the person says, well, there's no diamonds here. I'm going to go on the search for diamonds. So someone comes years later, knocks on the door, and the wife's home. And he says, hey, is my friend here? And she goes, no. Do you want to come in? He went out looking for diamonds. He never came back. He died looking for diamonds. So as he was talking about stories with the wife, how he knew his friend, he goes over to the mantle, and there's a big rock there, and he turns and he knocks this rock, and it falls and smashes on the ground. And the rock breaks open, and it's full of diamonds. And so the guy says, "Oh my goodness, this rock is full of diamonds. Where is this rock from?" And she says, "Oh my goodness. He found it in the backyard years ago and thought it was such an interesting rock. He brought it in and stuck it on the mantle." Acres of diamonds. You're looking all over, and actually the greatest diamonds first start right inside your mind, right? Right inside your mind. Okay, so let's pick this up. You would need to completely believe that this new pathway through the jungle would result in an end goal that far outweighs the effort that you're putting into it. Belief system. Belief system. I just told someone today, like, you have to know your destination and you have to believe in the destination. Okay? All right. You would need to remind yourself of the outcome so that you don't give up and resort to walking the old, well-traveled path. This is called resetting back to old patterns and pathways. How many of you do something new? You start working out, you start walking, bicycling, eating better, but then you end up resetting back. Tell me in the chat bar, you end up resetting back to where you were. And now to move forward, it's harder because it's like you have to restart the pendulum. And keep telling me what you're picking up here. Are you getting value? Are you enjoying me? I never read any of my books to translate, and I think I've done 18 books so far. So if you're digging it, then I'll consider doing more of this so you understand where I was coming from when I was writing and going through this. Okay, this is especially important when the old, well-traveled path is leading to destinations that you no longer wish to go. If the old, well-traveled path is a bad habit, an attitude, or a perspective you no longer wish to have, or even a simple distraction, okay, you need to avoid it at all cost. Okay, this is where, okay, where, all right, so someone said to me, like, I never drank alcohol. Now, if you drink alcohol, that's completely up to you and fine. But when I was young and I was in survival mode, I was in a state that I couldn't be distracted by anything. Okay, so if you want to know why I never did drugs, I never did alcohol my whole life, was because I looked at that as a vehicle that would create greater struggle and not greater solutions. Now, would it have been easy for me to do what all my friends were doing? Yes, but I avoided it at all cost because I knew inside my mind that could only cause me more struggle, not give me more, but take more away from me. Now, if you do those things, it's completely up to you. But I'm just telling you, I knew my mind way back then was the most powerful vehicle, and my mind was the leader of suffering or success. You should write those two words down. My mind was also the difference between victim and victory. All victory and all victimhood starts in the mind. All success or struggle starts inside the mind. Okay. Eventually, when you have avoided this path for long enough, it will begin to be covered over in new growth and will not be easy to go back. When you get to this point in your journey where the initial path has been covered over and the new path has now become the easier path, you have to go into the jungle of suffering. You have to hack away. And if you force it through enough, the old struggle path becomes an easier path for you because you push through. Most people are quitting 3 foot from gold, right? I tell everybody that's growing a business, starting a business, wants to go through the next level of business, growing their health, growing their relationship. You must push through with brute force. There's no room to dilly-dally and tiptoe. Tiptoeing will have the old mind consume and bring you right back to where you always been. And then you'll live a life where people go, nah, you know what? I'm just fine the way I am. Old dogs can't learn new tricks. Okay, let's keep going here. Okay, when you get to this point in your journey where the initial path has been covered over and the new path has now become the easier path, you have experienced significant rewiring and mind growth. Like, that's what happened for me, right? And it's happened for me on different levels. Like when I was training martial arts, just going from a white belt to a yellow belt creates a sense of rewiring. Yellow to blue, blue to green, green to purple, purple to brown, brown to black, black to first degree, second degree, right? Everyone created a new sense of rewiring. Now what I learned was I can create a sense of new wiring by me and my wife just taking a walk on the beach today and having a conversation about something. We can create new wiring. And one of the biggest things is when you create new wiring, you could recognize in situations you have new wiring. How do you know? Well, let's say you're somebody that always snaps out, yells, bang table, punches things. And then you create a sense of new wiring. Well, when you create the new sense of wiring, you're not triggered by these basic things that would bother you, right? What once was difficult and nearly impossible path to walk has now become an easy stroll. This is like wealth. This is freedom. This is financial security, okay? This new path was intentionally created to get you to a new pre-planned destination versus the old default path that simply took the way of least resistance. When I was starting as an electrician, I worked for a guy, Cataldo Electric, John Cataldo. My brother worked there. Another guy, Tony D, worked there. And I love this guy. I said that if he never died, I would still work for him. Best boss that I ever had. But I was the new kid on the block. I was young. I wasn't a mechanic. And I remember a job, my brother and another guy working there, he said, oh, I need a shot. And they were like, this is a sucky job. I said, I'll take it. I didn't even know how to do the job, but I said, I'll take it. Because even back then I knew that taking the path of the strongest resistance would create resilience inside of me. And it would create growth faster than if I avoided it. So every time we were on a job, someone's like, oh, we got to snake a wire. We got to get a pipe underneath a sidewalk. I'm like, I'll do it. I constantly went for the struggle because I knew this. There's strength in struggle. Now that's counterintuitive, right? To the way a lot of you are thinking. You're thinking there's suffering in struggle. That's by choice. There's also strength in struggle. Okay. The same thing happens with your brain. The whole process is about leaving behind paths that led to destinations that are no longer serving your best interest and forging new paths that lead you to the ideal life that you are seeking. The goal is to destroy the bad connections and reinforce the good ones. So once you know you made these changes, you have to reinforce these changes. I've suggested above that you think of your mind like a jungle. Now, I'd suggest you think of your mind like steps, okay? And there's a diagram of steps here. If you want to ascend a staircase, you need to step up the next step. So many people in life are afraid to take the next step. I know I was afraid for many years too. Probably like 12 years, I didn't take the next step. I was afraid to invest in solutions. I was afraid to invest in people who already went through the jungle and knew the path, right? Otherwise, you'll never rise from one level to the next. It's similar with your mind. If you want to rise to the next level, you need to leave behind the last level. You have to leave. So many people I know today that are selling companies but afraid to leave the company. Like, no, I'm going to stay here because the company's going to grow and I'm going to win. I said, no, you're going to stay there because you're comfortable and you don't know how to step up. You don't know how to move to the next direction. So you stay where you're comfortable. Yes, you're going to make money, but don't fool me. You're comfortable there. You don't know any different. Because if you've been doing what you've been doing for 10 years, the same way for 10 years, you have not grown for 10 years. You're stuck. You're in a state of complacency. Okay? Leave behind. Okay. Are we hanging in there? Give me a big boom in the chat bar. Okay, the difference between weak-minded person and a strong-minded person is seen in their ability to take command over their unconscious, that they are aligned with what they would like to show up in their lives. A weak-minded person follows the old default paths of least resistance that lead to easily accessible destinations. A strong-minded person forges a new path through dense undergrowth, a new destination that few people ever get to see and experience. Boom. Right? People want what successful people have. They're not willing to do what successful people did just because of this, right? Strong-minded people create the steps that allow them to ascend to the next level of their mind. That is really, really key, everybody. You should just read page 24 again. Okay. It doesn't matter if we're talking about something as simple as the placement of light switches in your new house, or something more complicated like life habits or productivity habits, or something very complex like deeply held beliefs about life. They're all pathways, and weak-minded people struggle to create new pathways or stay on them, while strong-minded people embrace the challenge of forging new pathways even when the jungle is dense. How many of you need to forge a new pathway? Type in forge in the chat bar. Like, how many of you need to forge? And I'm honored you're hanging out here tonight. Some of you already left because it's too overwhelming for you, and it's okay. Your first commitment to mind growth resides in your decision to create a new path, and then your ability to stick to the discipline of forming new pathways for enough time that the old paths cease to exist. Okay? This is staying in the state of doing successful things over and over, right? Okay. It means getting out the machete and carving out a new path through the jungle. It may mean there will be days where you feel you barely make any progress, but you must resist the urge to go back. Oh my goodness. This is, in life, so true that people reset right back because they get a little bit of pressure. They're like, I hired someone, they weren't good, so I'm not going to hire no more people. Right? I made some money, but then I lost money, so I'm not going to make no more money. It's crazy. It means small victories need to be celebrated. Now, let me talk about celebration and teach you guys something. The brain is wired that when you celebrate things, it wants to create more of that greatness so that you can celebrate more. Okay? So you could celebrate more. Now, if you don't celebrate your wins, eventually the mind says, you don't appreciate anything you're doing, so I'm going to come and take away. My son and I were talking about some internet people, and they call it the great rise to the massive destruction, right? The great rise. I watch companies, $10 and $15 million companies, go broke in a year. I've watched bigger companies go out of business in a year, $20, $30 million companies. You think you're bulletproof, but you're not bulletproof, because if you didn't celebrate and you got sloppy, you get extinguished. Okay. Celebrated. Okay. So it means you must be vigilant in looking for the success clues that others who have gone ahead of you left on a path for you to find, so that you know you're not alone. Tell me in the chat bar, am I at least giving you a little bit of hope, or a little bit of knowledge, or a little bit of wisdom to know that this is possible for you? Tell me in the chat bar. Okay. So this is a slow, steady, and consistently hard work that is done away with the fanfare and limelight of success, but it will lead you to a place boasting about things. Sharing a victory and telling others you could do the victory too is very serving. Sharing a victory and rubbing it like you're lesser is not beneficial. At least in my eyes, it's not beneficial. When you are willing to put in the hard and tedious work that no one sees, you are gaining mind power that will serve you for the rest of your life. Okay, so here's some of the action steps from this here. This was mind power number 2, the power of new pathways. Really good section. Okay, so action steps. Embrace the challenge of forging new pathways by doing something different, perhaps brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Here's what I would tell you. All of you know something different. And feel free to type it in the chat bar if you're brave enough to do so. Like, what is something different you have to do? Do you have to complain less? Do you have to wake up earlier? Do you have to go listen to the radio, which is kind of like emotional numbing and just a vibration of nothingness? Maybe you tap your feet and sing, versus listening to something that's solving a problem. Like every time I drove, I needed something to listen to that would solve my next problem. Write this down. Highest and best use of your time will move you forward. Okay. Lower use of your time will pull you back. Okay. Adopt a new habit by choosing to do it and then rewarding yourself for consistently executing. Your brain needs to know you're grateful. It needs to know you're thankful. It could be as simple as this. Okay, I shared a lot of value with everybody today. Brain, I'm super thankful for you. I'm thankful for, everybody showing up to listen, those that watch the replay, and I'm just going to celebrate for doing this. Drink of water. That's it. That's all it takes. The brain just goes, oh, super thankful. Awesome. Let's do more here, right? And then action step number 3. Look at some of your strongly held beliefs about faith, relationship, money, and work. Ask yourself, where did I acquire this idea? And do I believe it, or do I believe something different, right? Do I believe it, or do I believe something different? So, awesome. You got a little, look, I folded that up now. Now it's like, okay. All right, it's like half open. All right, so you got a little story time tonight here. I hope this is massive value for you guys tonight. Remember, I don't want this to be entertainment. I want it to be transformation. So take 2 or 3 things we talked about, put it into immediate action. I am rooting for all of you guys. We're going into 2023. We're going to be there before you know it. It's going to be the greatest year of opportunity than you could imagine. Okay. All right, everybody. Have an amazing night. It's only Tuesday, Wednesday for most of you. So let's pick up momentum.